Mr. Deputy Speaker, there's another group of savers I want to talk about today. I'm proud to have been part of a government that has helped compensate the policyholders of Equitable Life who have suffered a great injustice. But we've not extended help to those who bought their with-profits annuity before 1992. Now we can. I'd like to acknowledge the work of my honourable friend for Harrow East on behalf of these people. We will make ex gratia payments of £5,000 to those elderly policyholders, and we'll make an extra £5,000 available to those on the lowest incomes who are on pension credit. We're not doing this because we're legally obliged to. We're doing it because, quite simply, it's the right thing to do. Helping with aspiration also means helping those who want to keep their homes instead of having to sell it to pay off the costs of social care. That's what our new cap will deliver, as Andrew Dilnot recommended. It also comes in 2016. It will be set to protect savings above £72,000 and will raise the threshold for the means test on residential care from just over £23,000 to £118,000 that year too. For decades, politicians have talked of doing something for savers and those who have to sell their homes to pay for care, and yet nothing has been done until this week. And I want to do much more. For unless we fire up the aspirations of the British people, like the fires of ambition within our nation, we are going to be outsmarted, outcompeted and outperformed by others in the world who are prepared to work harder for success than we are. So this budget makes a new offer to our aspiration nation. And what symbolises that more than the desire to own your own home? Today I can announce Help to Buy. The deposits demanded for a mortgage these days have put home ownership beyond the great majority who can't turn to their parents for a contribution. And that's not just a blow to the most human of aspirations, it's a setback to social mobility. And it's been hard on the construction industry too. This budget proposes to put that right, and put it right in a dramatic way. Help to Buy has two components. First, we're going to commit £3.5 billion of capital spending over the next 3 years to shared equity loans. From the beginning of next month, we will offer an equity loan worth up to 20% of the value of a new build home to anyone looking to move up the housing ladder. You put down a 5% deposit from your savings and the government will loan you a further 20%. The loan is interest-free for the first 5 years. It is repaid when the home is sold. Previous help was only available to those who were first-time buyers and who had family incomes below £60,000. Now help is available to all buyers of newly built homes on all incomes, available to anyone looking to get on or move up the housing ladder. And the only constraint will be that the home can't be worth more than £600,000, but this covers well over 90% of all homes. It's a great deal for home buyers. It's a great support to home builders. And because it's a financial transaction, with the taxpayer making an investment and getting a return, it won't hit our deficit. The second part of Help to Buy is even bolder and has not been seen before in this country. We're going to help families who want a mortgage for any home they're buying, old or new, but who cannot begin to afford the kind of deposits being demanded today. We will offer a new mortgage guarantee. This will be available to lenders to help them provide more mortgages to people who can't afford a big deposit. Those guaranteed mortgages will be available to all homeowners, subject to the usual checks on responsible lending. Using the government's balance sheet to back these higher loan-to-value mortgages, we will dramatically increase their availability. We've worked with some of the biggest mortgage lenders to get this right, and we're offering guarantees sufficient to support £130 billion worth of mortgages. It will be available from the start of 2014 and run for 3 years, and a future government would need the agreement of the Bank of England's Financial Policy Committee if they wanted to extend it. Help to Buy is a dramatic intervention to get our housing market moving. For newly built housing, government will put up a fifth of the cost. And for anyone who can afford a mortgage but can't afford a big deposit, our mortgage guarantee will help you to buy your own home. is a good use, Mr. Deputy Speaker, of this government's fiscal credibility. In the budget book, we also set out more plans for housing, plans to build 15,000 more affordable homes, plans to increase fivefold the funds available for building for rent, and plans to extend the right to buy so more tenants can buy their own home. Mr. Deputy Speaker, people also have the aspiration to keep more of what they earn. That's a difficult aspiration for any Chancellor to help with when economic times are tough and money is short. But we're doing the hard work to reduce current spending. We've set out a tough package to raise money from tax avoiders. And that means that with this budget, we can stick to the path of deficit reduction, increase capital spending, and still find ways to help families. Let me turn to duties. We inherited a fuel duty escalator from the previous government that would have seen above-inflation increases in every year of this Parliament. We abolished the escalator, and we've now frozen fuel duty for 2 years. This has not been easy. The government has foregone $6 billion in revenues to date. But oil prices have risen again, family budgets are squeezed, and I hear those who want me to do more to help them get by. My honourable friend for Harlow has again spoken up for his hard-working constituents. And he's been joined by many other honourable friends like the member for Argyll and Bute. We've all listened to the people we represent. Today I am cancelling this September's fuel duty increase altogether. Petrol will now be 13 pence per litre cheaper than if we'd not acted over these last 2 years to freeze fuel duty. For a Vauxhall Astra or Ford Focus, that's £7 less every time you fill up. Mr. Deputy Speaker, there's another duty escalator we also inherited from the previous government. The annual 2% above inflation increase in alcohol. We're looking at plans to stop the biggest discounts of cheap alcohol at retailers. But responsible drinkers in our pubs should not pay the price for the problems caused by others. And the sad fact is that we've lost 10,000 pubs in the UK over the last decade. Many honourable members have raised their concerns with me, like my honourable friend for Bristol North West, and my honourable friend for Burton in particular has been a committed champion of the famous brewing industry that employs many of his constituents. I intend to maintain the planned rise for all alcohol duties, with the exception of beer. We will now scrap the beer duty escalator altogether. And instead of the 3 pence rise in beer duty tax planned for this year by the previous government, I am cancelling it altogether. That's the freeze people have been campaigning for, but I'm going to go one step further, and I'm going to cut beer duty by 1 pence. We're taking a penny off the pint. The cut will take effect this Sunday night, and I expect it to be passed on in full to customers. All other duties will remain as previously announced. Mr. Deputy Speaker, of course, freezing petrol duty and cutting beer duty will not transform the finances of any family, but it helps a little to have some bills that aren't going up. And
Order. Can I just say to the back row and a couple of people in particular that the Panto season isn't for another 9 months, and if auditions do take place, can they take place outside the chamber? Chancellor of the Exchequer.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, it helps a lot to be able to keep more of the money you earn before you pay tax on it. This government supports people who work hard and want to get on. When we came to office, the personal income tax allowance stood at under £6,500. In 2 weeks' time, the allowance will reach £9,440, with the largest cash increase in its history. 24 million taxpayers will see their income tax bill cut by an extra £200. Over 2 million of the lowest paid will be taken out of tax altogether. In this budget, the government reconfirms its commitment to raising the personal allowance to £10,000. In fact, we go one better. Mr. Deputy Speaker, we said we would raise the personal allowance to £10,000 by the end of the Parliament. Today, I can confirm we will get there next year. From 2014, Mr. Deputy Speaker, from 2014 there will be no income tax at all on the first £10,000 of your salary. £10,000 of tax-free earning. That's £700 less in tax for working families than when this government came to office. Almost 3 million of the lowest paid will pay no income tax at all. It is a historic achievement for this government and for hard-working families across the country. Now, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I'm aware that the concept of a 10p tax rate has caused problems for honourable members opposite. First, they introduced it before deciding that introducing it was a mistake and it ought to be abolished. Then they decided that abolishing it was a mistake and they ought to introduce it again. So to put them out of their misery, we're going to turn their 10p band into a 0p band, and they don't have to worry about it anymore. Every person who was paying at the 10p rate that they doubled will now be paying no income tax at all. Mr. Deputy Speaker, there is one final tax change I want to tell the House about, and it's about jobs. For in the end, aspiration is about living in a country where people can get jobs and fulfil their dreams. The ending of contracting out that I talked about generates extra employee national insurance revenues for the Exchequer, and I want to put those revenues to good use. I want to support jobs and the small businesses that create them. And I want to do it with a reforming tax cut. In fact, it's the largest tax cut in this budget. The cost of employing people is a burden on small firms, and it's a real barrier to taking an extra person on. To help create jobs and back small businesses in this country, I am today creating the Employment Allowance. The Employment Allowance will work by taking the first £2,000 off the employer national insurance bill of every company. It is a tax off jobs. It's worth up to £2,000 for every business in the country, and it will mean that 450,000 small businesses, 1/3 of all employers in the country, will pay no jobs tax at all. For the person who's set up their own business, who's thinking about taking on their first employee, a huge barrier will be removed. They can hire someone on £22,000 a year or 4 people on the minimum wage and pay no jobs tax. 98% of the benefit of this employment allowance will go to SMEs. It will become available in April next year once the legislation has passed, and will also make it available to charities and community sports clubs. The last government's answer to Britain's economic problems was to propose a tax on jobs. We stopped that, and today this government is taking tax off jobs. Mr. Deputy Speaker, a new employment allowance that helps small firms, a 20% rate of corporation tax, a £10,000 personal allowance, major achievements delivered by this government in difficult times. We understand that the way to restore our economic prosperity is to energise the aspirations of the British people. If you want to own your own home, if you want help with your childcare bills, if you want to start your own business or give someone a job, if you want to save for your retirement and leave your home to your children, if you want to work hard and get on, we are on your side. This is a budget. This is a budget that doesn't duck our nation's problems. It confronts them head-on. It's a budget for an aspiration nation. It's a budget that wants to be prosperous, solvent and free. Thank you. I commend it to the House.
That concludes the 4th budget presented by George Osborne to the House.